made in 1,200 days, but sink in just 2 hours. The world's largest ship was ready to embark on its maiden voyage, but then that happened which no one even expected. The belief that the Titanic was unsinkable led to complacency and a failure to take adequate precautions. How can we believe that even Captain Edward Smith of Titanic, who had 40 years of experience, did not see all these mistakes? Not even noticed by Titanic Operate Company, the White Star Line, which had the experience to operate 107 aircraft. The RMS Titanic was the largest and most luxurious ship ever built. It was approximately 882 feet long and 175 feet tall, boasting opulent amenities such as a swimming pool, gymnasium, libraries, and lavish dining rooms. Its construction cost was estimated at around $7.5 million, equivalent to over $180 million today. On April 10, 1912, with over 2,200 passengers and crew on board, it made stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, now Cove, Ireland, before heading across the Atlantic towards New York City. The Titanic's passenger list was divided into 3 classes: first, second, and third, or steerage. Passengers in first class enjoyed luxurious accommodations and amenities, while those in third class had more modest accommodations. Tragically, class distinctions also affected access to lifeboats, with first-class passengers given priority during the evacuation. But stop here. Why are we telling you this story after about 110 years? Well, when finding about what exactly happened and why the most advanced ship of its time sank, we believe there were mistakes in its construction, or it was a planned murder. The passengers, the countless well-wishers waving goodbye, and even the crew of the Titanic were unaware of the critical errors made during the construction of the impending voyage, ultimately contributing to its catastrophic collision. The construction of the RMS Titanic began in 1909 at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, Ireland. The Titanic was designed by the naval architect Thomas Andrews and overseen by Harland and Wolff's managing director, Lord Peary. The ship was built using innovative techniques and materials of the time, including over 3 million rivets to hold its massive steel hull together. The ship's first voyage began in Southampton, England, on April 10, 1912, and ended in New York City, USA. Titanic's economy portion cost $30, while first-class travel cost $150. As a result of this marketing, all of a sudden, bookings were made, and finally, the day came when Titanic was about to start its first journey. White Star Line, the company that owned the Titanic, spared no expense in marketing the ship as the epitome of luxury and safety. Advertisements emphasized the Titanic's advanced safety features, such as its watertight compartments and electrically operated watertight doors, which were intended to make the ship virtually unsinkable. The Titanic's maiden voyage was highly anticipated and widely publicized. It was billed as a voyage of unparalleled luxury and comfort, attracting passengers from all walks of life, including prominent businessmen, celebrities, and immigrants seeking a new life in America. And now the time came, and Titanic engines were started, and she started floating on ocean. Mistake number 1. Owner's pressure to build reputation. There is evidence to suggest that there was pressure on the captain and crew of the Titanic to maintain a high speed during its maiden voyage. The White Star Line, the company that owned the Titanic, was in competition with other shipping companies, particularly Cunard Line, to attract passengers with promises of fast transatlantic crossings. Maintaining a reputation for speed and punctuality was important for attracting passengers and maintaining profitability. The captain was instructed that if they hadn't arrived in New York on time, Titanic's reputation would have been severely damaged. The ship left the port of Southampton so far behind that nothing but the blue sea could be seen in the distance. There have been suggestions that Captain Smith, nearing retirement, may have been inclined to make a notable crossing on the Titanic's maiden voyage. Achieving a record-breaking or particularly fast journey could have been seen as a crowning achievement in his career. However, it's important to note that maintaining speed alone was not the sole cause of the Titanic disaster. It was a combination of factors, including speed, navigation decisions, and response to warnings, that led to the tragic outcome. Mistake number 2, neglection of ice warnings. Despite receiving multiple warnings about ice in the area from other ships via wireless telegraph, the Titanic's crew did not take sufficient precautions. The wireless operator was preoccupied with transmitting passenger messages and did not prioritize relaying ice warnings to the bridge. The nearby ship Californian failed to respond promptly to distress signals from the Titanic, as its wireless operator had already gone to bed for the night. Experts believe that the warning was given at least 6 times, but due to the negligence of the wireless operators, they missed the most important warnings. Titanic was the first luxury aircraft of its kind and had many VIP in it. Most Titanic staff were busy serving first-class passengers. If these warnings were taken seriously, the whole scene ahead would have been different. Mistakes number 3, design flaws. The Titanic was advertised as unsinkable, primarily due to its design featuring 16 watertight compartments. However, the compartments were not fully sealed at the top, allowing water to spill over from one compartment to another as they flooded. The ship's hull plates were not made of particularly strong steel and were riveted together rather than welded, which made the hull more vulnerable to damage upon collision. The ship's bulkheads did not extend high enough above the waterline, allowing water to overflow from one compartment to the next. Mistakes number 4, insufficient lifeboats. The Titanic was equipped with only 20 lifeboats and 4 collapsible boats, far fewer than what was necessary to accommodate all passengers and crew. This shortage was due to outdated maritime regulations, which had not been updated to reflect the increasing size and passenger capacity of ships like the Titanic. Many lifeboats were launched only partially filled, as passengers and crew were initially hesitant to evacuate the seemingly unsinkable ship. There was a lack of clear procedures and training for crew members regarding lifeboat deployment and evacuation. Mistakes number 5, lack of binoculars. The lookout in the crow's nest did not have access to binoculars, which could have improved their ability to spot the iceberg sooner. The lack of binoculars was reportedly due to a mix-up with the key to the locker where they were stored, resulting in their absence during the voyage. The ship's guards were alert, who were ready to give any iceberg report to their captain when they saw it from a distance. But they didn't have a thing to see from a distance, and that thing was binoculars. This marked the Titanic's biggest mistake. Despite the ship's lookouts alerting Captain Smith to the presence of an iceberg the size of a football field directly ahead, it was too late to take evasive action as the iceberg was so close. In the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean, encountering icebergs was a common occurrence, typically manageable for large vessels. It's possible that Captain Smith presumed the Titanic could handle such a situation similarly. Despite his swift orders to alter the Titanic's course, Captain Smith tried hard to avoid iceberg, but the distance was so short that it was useless to do anything. Mistake number 6, or we can say the main incident: collision with an iceberg. The Titanic's collision with the iceberg occurred around 11:40 p.m. on April 14, 1912, in the North Atlantic Ocean, about 375 miles south of Newfoundland, Canada. The iceberg tore open the Titanic's hull along its starboard side, causing extensive damage to multiple watertight compartments. The Titanic was traveling at a high speed of around 22 knots, about 25 miles per hour, when it struck the iceberg, exacerbating the impact and damage. Iceberg had now collided with the center of Titanic, but there was still a lot of hope for Titanic to survive. Experts believe that the reverts on the Titanic body were not made of steel, but of cast iron. From where the iceberg collided with the body of the Titanic, the reverts opened due to pressure, and then what Captain Smith feared happened. Now the lower decks of the ship were inundated with water, signaling a grave situation to the entire crew and passengers aboard. Joseph Bruce Ismay, the owner of the Titanic, sprang into action, attempting to stem the flooding. Despite initial hopes for the ship's survival, the Titanic's design, purportedly capable of withstanding flooding on 3 decks, was no match for the escalating disaster. As water breached the 4th deck, the situation spiraled out of control, and the Titanic began its slow descent into the depths of the ocean. With the ship's fate sealed, the priority shifted to the urgent task of saving the lives of those aboard, prioritizing their safety above all else. Mistake number 7, the chaos. Captain Smith urgently broadcasted a distress call over the radio, intending to coordinate the transfer of passengers to lifeboats while awaiting assistance. However, the situation took a dire turn. Though the ship had capacity for 32 lifeboats, only 20 were on board due to oversights. With 1,500 passengers and a meager 20 lifeboats available, the gravity of the situation became starkly apparent. There was chaos everywhere, and everyone wanted to get on these few guinea pig boats. At 12:45, the first emergency boat was launched into the tumultuous sea. Yet amidst the chaos, another mistake unfolded. The boat was lowered without being adequately filled, prioritizing wealthy first-class passengers for boarding. Had more passengers been swiftly loaded onto the lifeboats, countless lives could have been spared. At 2:18 a.m., due to the short circuit, all the lights of Titanic were turned off, and the next moment the ship broke up and split into 2 parts. So Titanic was completely submerged in 2 hours and 40 minutes. More than 1,500 people drowned in cold water in the Atlantic Ocean. The temperature of the water at that time was -2 degrees Celsius, which means that even if the passengers jumped into the cold water, there was no chance of escape, because man cannot survive more than 30 minutes in such a low temperature. The largest number of survivors were children and women. On the other side was Captain Smith, who was spending all his time saving lives, and he was the last man to jump off a sinking ship. So here we come to a conclusion. What we think is that the biggest mistake was its reverts on the Titanic body. If company had used steel instead of cast iron, there could have been possibly of less or no damage while collision with iceberg, and other was negligence. You must be aware and high alert on your duty. Negligence in the inadequate safety precautions and failure to respond to iceberg warnings played a role in the sinking of the ship. Learning from mistakes. The sinking of the Titanic prompted significant changes in maritime safety regulations and practices, including the implementation of stricter rules regarding the number of lifeboats, improved training for crew members, and better communication protocols. The disaster serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of learning from mistakes and continuously striving to improve safety standards to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.